Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I'm always grateful. Let me first thank Sophie Kenya for having me on her BBC Focus on Africa show yesterday. We spoke about Glencore, Zambia, the currency collapses across the continent, the commodity price collapse, and a number of other things. I'd also like to thank the Embassy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the invite yesterday to celebrate their National Day. I put up a photograph I took from the Villa Rosa Kapinski just before I had to dash off to the BBC. Macro thoughts, Eric Scott Hunsader, same volatility inducing algo spotted in silver futures earlier today showed up in gold this afternoon. And he's very interesting resource, particularly on the mechanics and the workings of the markets in the modern age. Home thoughts, I return to J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye. If a girl looks swell when she meets you, who gives a damn if she's late? Then it was that kind of a crazy afternoon, terrifically cold and no sun out or anything, and you felt you were disappearing every time you crossed a road. Final quote from Salinger, it always smelled like it was raining outside, even if it wasn't, and you were in the only nice, dry, cozy place in the world. This caught my attention inside Bolivia's new psychedelic mansions, and goodness, they are psychedelic. Political reflections, Edward Snowden on Twitter, can you hear me now? He asks in his first tweet. There is no future for Assad in Syria, Jubair told journalists at the UN General Assembly. There are two options for a settlement in Syria. One option is a political process where there would be a transitional council. The other option is a military option, which also would end with the removal of Bashar al-Assad from power. Putin has redoubled his support for Assad by a significant and growing military deployment in Syria. US officials said on Tuesday that 4 advanced aircraft, Sukhoi Su-34 fullback fighters, had arrived at Latakia Air Base in western Syria, bringing the total number of Russian planes stationed there to over 30. I concluded by saying Putin has triangulated the kingdom, Turkey, Israel, and the GCC by establishing indisputable facts on the ground, of which the Su-34 is but one. And one senses he has issued a series of warnings to KSA, Turkey, Israel, GCC about their assets on the Syrian battlefield. Global Risk Insights puts up a photograph of a meeting between China and Russia, and the pivot to Kiev, the pivot to Asia, pushed Xi Jinping and Vladimir into each other's arms. Putin also met with Rouhani yesterday. Vali Nasser in Politico, Russia's daring intervention in Syria is not just a rude shock for Washington, but could also be a strategic game changer for the Middle East. No matter how this ends, for now Russia has changed the dynamics of the Syria crisis and opened up new possibilities. The crisis is no longer about Iran, which was increasingly on its heels, defending Assad while also fighting ISIL in Iraq. By stepping forward as Assad's principal prop and forging an axis against ISIL consisting of Iran, Iraq, and Syria, Russia has put fighting Islamic extremism rather than Iranian mischief center stage in regional politics. For many in the West, the preoccupation will be Russia's role in the Middle East, not the aftermath of the Iranian nuclear deal. And this is what I was saying earlier. Russia's intervention is also a direct challenge to Turkey's and the Persian Gulf monarchies' support for Assad's opposition. Back in 2012, King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia showed his displeasure for Russian support of the Assad regime by purportedly hanging up the telephone and President Dmitry Medvedev. It does not appear that Russia is too worried about how Turkey or the Arab world might react to its latest military endeavour. After the nuclear deal, Arab monarchies unhappy with Washington have deemed it necessary to build ties with Moscow. And I concluded again by saying Putin tilted the pitch by backing up his words with action on the ground. And then I think the Guardian's agreeing with me, saying vague plans for a post-Assad transition are just fantasy now. Syria is no longer a landscape on which to project our fine ideals. It is a human catastrophe. Looking for a happy ending to such a nightmare is childish, but there has to be an ending. There has to be a chance for Syria to rebuild something like a human society. Chiara Palazzo tweeted, Unga, most awkward moments in pictures, Putin the peacemaker and Obama. There's a photograph from Getty Images. I take it back to a photo I took when Putin asked who was manipulating whom, which I thought was a rather good question. My piece over the weekend was all about when Beijing came to Washington. And I like this tweet from Libération. Micronations, Empire Loufouk et Enclave Libre. Micronations. I've spoken about how the Middle East is atomizing into smaller and smaller entities. The king is not in a stable condition. In reality, the son of the king, Mohammed bin Salman, is ruling the kingdom. People inside the kingdom know what's going on, but they can't say. The problem is the corruption in using the resources of the country for building things in the right form, said an activist who lives in Mecca. Unfortunately, the government points the finger against the lower levels, saying, for example, where are the ambulances, where are the healthcare workers? They try to escape the real reason of such disaster. And now there are reports coming out that, in fact, 5,000 people died in the disaster. Haaretz Netanyahu, at the UN, I will stress Israel's desire for peace with the Palestinians. That's what he said. FIFA ethics panel gives life ban to former EXCO member Jack Warner, getting closer and closer to the Teflon Emperor. Euro was at 112.46 this morning, now at 112.06. Dollar index was below 96, is now above it. Japanese yen around the 120 mark. These are prices from earlier in the day. Swiss franc 0.9723, pound 151.64, Aussie 0.7016. Indian rupees stable, notwithstanding the larger than expected rate cut yesterday, 65.785. South Korean won 11.8611, the Rial 405.73. Egyptian pound 783.75, the South African rand 1390.57. Dollar index, let me put up a 3-month chart. I still think it'll be above 100 by year end. Euro dollar, let me put up a 3-month chart of that as well. Tends to get a blip higher when the market becomes risk on, it tends to sell off again. Asian currencies are headed for their biggest quarterly loss since the Asian financial crisis. Have a look at the chart. Bloomberg JP Morgan Asia Dollar Index tracks the region's 10 most active currencies outside of Japan, has dropped 4.2% in its worst performance since the 1997-1998 crisis. Moving on to the commodity markets, as I said in November, the commodity supercycle is dead in the water. And Riley tweeted commodities falling off the supercycle. Have a look at the price depreciations we've seen. Jeff Mack, Glencore up 16.6% after assuring investors it has no liquidity problems. He tweeted deja vu. Gold, when I looked last, was around the 1125 level, capped at 1150, 1155. Crude oil around the $45 mark. This is what caught my attention. China Union Pay, which provides almost all the country's bank cards, will limit annual withdrawals to $16,000 each year. China will set up an annual cap on cash withdrawals overseas using domestic bank cards, state media said Tuesday, as fears over capital outflows in the world's second largest economy grow. That's interesting, isn't it, if they actually do that? Let's move on to Africa. AFP photo. A soldier carries an RPG while on patrol near to the RSP military barracks in Burkina Faso. We later learned yesterday afternoon that Burkina Faso army took up position near the Presidential Guard camp, and then that the coup plotters had abandoned the barracks after an army assault. General Gilbert Diender, the leader of the coup, told AFP he feared there'd been many deaths from the assault on the barracks near the presidential palace. The army fired artillery on the barracks, he said, adding that there had been families and a clinic inside the barracks. There must have been many deaths and injuries. It was not immediately clear how many people died. The situation is calm, an assault was carried out, there was no confrontation. Put up a photograph of Burkina Faso soldiers laying siege to the rebel troops' barracks on Tuesday. Jason Stearns tweeted, Katumbi, the governor of Katanga, resigns from the PPRD party. Easy getting ready to run for the presidency. A question of when, not whether. And then this tweet, referendum, love Congo. Look at the image. Amid swirling rumours, claims and counterclaims, exactly who is behind murky murders in Bujumbura is unclear. David Cameron announced day before last 70 armed forces personnel will go to Somalia, where forces are fighting jihadists from Al-Qaeda's splinter group Al-Shabaab. Another 300 troops are due to go to neighbouring South Sudan to bring peace to the world's newest independent nation. Zambia is to review FX rules after the currency slump. This is the central banker. Plunged 17% on Monday to a record low. Sharp decline is worrying Zambia's commercial banks and the central bank. The move in the exchange rate is not reflecting a move in the fundamentals. The supply side and the demand side seem to be more or less the same. Have a look at this chart comparing the Zambia Kwacha to the price of Glencore ordinary shares. Bloomberg is saying Zambia is saying they're fighting a phantom in the world's currency plunge, world's worst currency plunge. The Zambian Kwacha's plunge, the world's biggest exchange rate depreciation this year, is being fueled by phantom demand for foreign currencies, according to the deputy governor. That's a new one. South African all share is minus 0.78% year to date. The rand touched an all-time low of 14.1588 against the dollar and 15.9708 against the euro yesterday. Let me put up a 6-month chart. I still think we're going to see fresh lows. Egyptian pound 783.75. Egyptian EGX 30 is down 17.87% year to date. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is set to become oil minister in his own cabinet. I intend to remain the Minister of Petroleum Resources, he said in an interview. And I wrote about this over the weekend when I said, 21st of September, over in Nigeria, President Buhari has made the calculation that he needs to drain the trough. He is Mr. Forensic Audit. He's calculating the appointment of his cabinet. Wait. Put up a photograph of him with Francois Hollande. Nigerian all share ticked up 0.2%, still down 11.06% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange down 11.68% year to date, fell quite dramatically, 1.98% yesterday. Padraish, who lives in Burundi, tweeted this: Burundi's Amahoro drummers perform at the Lake of Stars Festival on Lake Malawi shores. It's a lovely photograph. David Cameron, now this is interesting, says travel warnings hurt Kenyan fight against militants. This press release came out of the Kenyan State House. Cameron did not release a press release. We all agree that the effect of the advisories are what the terrorists actually want because it defeats the efforts to stop extremists from seducing people into their activities, Cameron said during a meeting with Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta in New York on Monday. The UK has issued warnings against travelling to areas including Kenya's coast and around the capital Nairobi. Tourist arrivals in Kenya, which the country depends upon to provide about $1 billion in foreign exchange earnings, dropped 31% in the 7 months through July. Cameron said the two governments should renew a military pact that allows British troops to train in Kenya after it was delayed amid the diplomatic feud over travel advisories. Cameron is scheduled to visit Kenya next year to discuss security and economic cooperation. And he then said the current immigration crisis in Europe is making us realize that we've not done enough to help solve the problems in regions facing conflicts. The refugee crisis has focused the minds, it seems. The Kenyan Central Bank Governor Njoroge says we've been pursuing a very tight monetary policy. We've been pursuing a very tight monetary policy. There are good prospects that inflation will be at the same level in the near future. Inflation slowed to 5.8% in August from 6.6% in July. The central bank raised its benchmark interest rate twice this year by a total of 300 basis points. Shilling down 14% against the dollar since January, which isn't that bad when you consider what some of these other currencies have been doing. Njoroge said that while the currency has stabilized in recent days, the NBC has assessed that inflation expectations are yet to ease. That's the reason the NBC left interest rates unchanged for a second time at its meeting on September 22nd. Inflation expectations need to fall. While there's evidence that stability is returning to the foreign exchange market after the central bank acted to reduce volatility, it will remain vigilant. This is not a battle we can say has been won, Njoroge said, adding that he was working to reduce market indiscipline. Not sure what he means by market indiscipline. Central bank has been dipping into FX reserves to smooth volatility in the domestic currency market. Reserves stood at $6.18 billion as of September 18. So we've got to keep an eye on that. I think the economy will come to a crashing halt if interest rates stay up where they are now. The rate at which commercial banks lend to each other overnight has doubled in 3 weeks, reaching an average of 26.75% as at 2:45 p.m. on Tuesday. Equity Group have announced that ProCredit is now officially a subsidiary of Equity Group. That official announcement is on rich.co.ke. Mumias Sugar reported full-year earnings. Loss per share increased 71.8%. Revenue down a whopping 57.7% to $5.53 billion. Gross profit down 295.7%. Admin expenses were reduced to 3.2%. Loss before tax was $6.3 billion versus $3.4 billion last time. Loss for the year after tax $4.644 billion versus $2.7 billion last time. Loss per share 3 shillings 4 cents versus 1 shilling and 77 cents last time round. Overall decreases from the company commentary in the industry average area under cane and cane yields when compared to the previous year. In Mumias zone, many farmers drastically reduced production, causing acute cane shortage, which resulted in low factory utilization and production. Company experienced numerous challenges that impacted performance adversely. The factory was closed for 2.5 months. Processed sugar cane dropped by 42%. Sugar recovery levels fell to a rendement of 6.28% versus 8.97%. Basically makes terribly grim reading, I'm afraid. Though in their future outlook, they're saying they're undergoing serious challenges, the outlook is propitious, is what they're saying. Kenya shilling, when I checked last, 105.40. Nairobi all share down 9.08% year to date. NSE 20 down 18.06% year to date. I like this tweet from the central banker from September the 26th. Post 1 hour run, jacarandas in bloom, resplendent bougainvillea and fresh hibiscus, a hint of jasmine in the breeze. Life is good. Yesterday the market the all share edged 0.22 points lower. NSE 20 slipped 16.92 points. Agricultural stocks were strong. Kenya Re also, which has surged 14.45% this month, was a big mover as well. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm always grateful. 10th of October, Mindspheet is back. Sankara. Hope to see you there.